Hey there, my fellow author. I'm Sarah Elizabeth Sawyer, an old soul kind of writer living my dream as a full-time author and authorpreneur. But I didn't start out living a confident, creative lifestyle. I struggled with the fears and the mental and emotional barriers that so often plague writers at all stages of their author career. But the truth is that with the right knowledge, tools, and training, you can overcome those barriers. I'm here to teach you how I've developed a lifestyle that's allowed me to publish 19 books and counting. Each week, as you tune into the Confident Fiction Author podcast, you'll get clarity on the steps you need to take to advance your writing career. Whether it's developing your ideal writing routine, tackling new skills like dictating your fiction, or overcoming the obstacles life throws your way, this podcast will help you live a more confident, creative lifestyle. Let's get started. Hey there, my fellow author. Sarah Elizabeth Sawyer here, your host of the Confident Fiction Author podcast. And today we are talking about how to make mental adjustments in a crisis to keep writing. Before I get into that, I just want to say a lot of these will also apply for this holiday season that we're in. Y'all, I'm so excited. This is my favorite time of year, like from September through December. I just love the season. My birthday is in September and October. We're starting to enjoy the pumpkins, if not the fall weather. I do live in Texas, but we get to just start entering this festive season and I just love it. So it's also really hard to stay mentally focused though with my writing projects. The good thing is typically by this time of year, I've done my heaviest work and projects for the year, and I am starting to wind things down. So I just want to say that these mental adjustments are also things that are helpful for me during the holiday season, but they are primarily lessons that I've learned over many years as a caregiver in my family that I want to share with you if you're in that season yourself, or to just be better prepared when a crisis does arise in your life, because we all have them. We all have things that we really were not expecting come on us that just completely derail us as authors. So I've mentioned my mother and we live together and have just a really great system for our household and all. I work from home. She's semi-retired. So it's a pretty sweet deal. That also, though, does make us kind of the 911 for our family. So whenever there's a crisis, whenever something happens, we're generally the first responders. That's why in August of 2023, when we got a text message from my aunt saying that my cousin was in the emergency room, I immediately started pulling my thoughts together of what do we need to do. And long story short, she was diagnosed with cancer of August of 2024. She did go back to work, so it was quite a journey for that year for all of us, and we're very grateful for where she is right now in her health journey. This is my most recent example of caregiving, so it's the one that I wanted to share with you all and just get a little personal about what that was like and what it was like to make the mental adjustments that I needed in order to keep writing, to keep my lifestyle and my career going during that time, because we were away from home for weeks at a time during that season. So caregiving and just those times of crisis take me into this disruptive and often exhausting places like hospital rooms and living in a hotel and just being behind the wheel driving for long hours. And like I said, I'm sure you have faced similar situations with health and emergencies that come up for yourself or a loved one. So that's why I want to share these tips with you that have helped keep me sane and productive and hopefully patient and loving during the harder seasons of life. So the first thing that you can do to help with making the mental adjustments during a crisis is take time for quiet. Whenever I'm caregiving, it's far more than the person who's in the crisis. It's also my fellow caregivers, like my mother and my aunt, who are focused on the more intense aspects like talking to doctors and dealing with the insurance. So my brain never stops as I think about what we should get to eat, what time we need to leave the hotel to make an appointment, and who needs their laundry washed. I'm on the phone with other family members and conveying the latest news, making calls for lodging arrangements, and keeping track with my friends back home who are taking care of our animals while we're gone. So one thing I do for that is I need that quiet time to regroup. And it's not just being by myself for a minute, but a time of no music, no podcasts, no audiobooks, just quiet, prayerful time, and hopefully sitting outside and hearing the sounds of nature. That's more difficult, like in a hospital setting. But when we were staying at the hotel, I did go out in the back patio area that they had, and there was no one else out there. And I was able to just look at the big blue sky and have that bit of quiet time. Also, I'm usually most successful with this taking a long, hot shower. There's no sounds, there's no distractions, there's no interruptions, and I can just really have that quiet time. This is also a time that I do often think about my writing projects and resolve issues that had me blocked amidst the needs around me. So that's the first thing you can do in making the mental adjustment is take time for quiet. The second goes along with that, and that's to be alone. While the above time is especially for prayer and contemplation, I also try to just fit in some alone time with things that do refresh me. So that's my music in my earbuds while I'm resting with my eyes closed, so I'm not taking any other sensory, not taking in the sights around me. I'm just listening to some music and relaxing. This is often me sitting in the car for an extra minute whenever I get to the hospital to just finish listening to a special song. Also in that alone time, I try to take walks, even if it's just to down the hall to the big windows in the hospital waiting room while I'm listening to a novel on my audiobook, just something that gives my brain a break and live in another world for a stretch of time. All right, third thing, eat healthy. This one is so important, but it's also so hard. When you're away from home and possibly in a new area, it's hard to stay on track with healthy eating. Time constraints usually play into this, and sometimes all you have is the hospital cafeteria. Still, I make it a priority to ensure myself and those around me are eating as well as we can. Yes, it is a stressful time, but will that slice of chocolate cake in the cafeteria really help me to love others better and serve them better? Will it fuel my brain and my body to stay on track with my work and with my writing? Okay, yes, we can splurge some when we're in a rough situation. It can be that comfort food or that bit of chocolate that we need to give us an overall sense of well-being. So it is a battle, but it's one I tell myself I must win, and that is taking care of my health during these crises. I think we're on the fourth thing, stick to your routines. This was so huge for me throughout, especially the long haul with my cousins and with my cousin and chemo treatment and radiation and just really being away from home. So having a solid morning routine prior to that latest caregiving season was really a game changer for me. I didn't have to stumble out of bed and wonder what's the first thing I need to do with myself. Or what would be worse is if I procrastinated even getting out of bed as I scrolled through my phone and wasted precious minutes and energy only to get up in a rush of confusion and anxiety when I realized what all I needed to do before leaving for the hospital. Again, I'm not perfect in this, but when I stick to my morning routine, which I'll be talking about in another episode, it does give the day a whole sense of normalcy. And that morning routine and getting myself going and all of these other tips that I have are the reason I was able to focus on publishing my 5th novel from the hospital room. So I literally had my computer out and was hitting publish on book 5 in my Choctaw Tribune series from my cousin's hospital room while we were waiting for the doctor to come in. All right, number 5, take it easy on yourself. I had to do this while staying at the hospitality house with my cousin while she was undergoing while I was taking her to her radiation treatments each day. So the hospitality house was unlike any place that I'd stayed before. It was a mix of a hotel and hospitality house and support center. It was just me and my cousin there, figuring out this phenomenal kitchen areas that they had, and then thinking about what are we going to do in the evening, and then also interacting with all of the other patients and caregivers that would gather in the dining room. So I went into that space knowing it would be a tough mental adjustment, and so I just made the decision ahead of time to give myself grace. Yes, I had a bunch of writing work to do, but I wasn't going to pack my days beyond realistic. I had to give myself time to adjust to the new environment, and the great thing was I did. That first week was not an easy week, but it was easier because I made the decision ahead of time to allow myself time to mentally adjust to the unique surroundings. And the next 2 weeks at the hospitality house went really well. It still, of course, was that mental and emotional drain, but I was able to keep up with my projects and with my writing from that new environment because I gave myself permission to just adjust to it in the beginning. So remember to give yourself that time to adjust during a crisis. Don't freak out about all the writing you had planned to do. Don't force the adjustments all at once. Just relax and ease into those moments of inspiration as you can. Speaking of which, our next tip is do something that inspires you. That is such a key for me once the initial crisis has passed. So when the dust begins to settle, but the tension is still high, do something that inspires you. Read a novel, or it may be rereading one of your favorites because that might be easier than tackling a new story. Or draw a beach scene from a YouTube tutorial, which is something that I did from my cousin's hospital room. You can also do writing sprints. I did that with a friend who was in the emergency room when her mom broke her shoulder. And so we co-wrote while she sat in the room with her mom for hours, waiting to be released. So don't worry about working on your main manuscript, that main story that you were in the midst of before the crisis happened. Do something that's easy or you're just excited to write. Just have fun with it. Enter that fictional world where beeping monitors and uncertainty disappear for just a time. Creative refreshment always helps me to come back into the moment, more ready to handle the mental and emotional strains. My last tip for you to make mental adjustments in a crisis or during the holidays here is to earmark what you can come back to later. So when a crisis hits, like when we got that text message about my cousin, or even more recently when we got the 2 a.m. phone call with my brother who was in an accident, he's okay, nothing life-threatening. But whenever we get that 911 from our family, I immediately begin analyzing what of my projects I can put off until later. Sometimes this isn't possible. I had a pre-order for book 5 in my series that needed to be published, and I did that from the hospital room. I taught my second ever dictation boot camp for authors from a hotel room. And so some things it's just not possible to put off until later, and that's okay. I let people know what I've got going on, and then I get into the zone of whatever I'm teaching or whatever I'm writing. There are some things that you can come back to, though. For me, like if there's an online conference or summit that I wanted to attend, I will be sure and save the material to review at a later date and put it on my calendar to come back to. or I at least make sure I download all of the freebies and the bonuses before they disappear and put them into a place that I can refer to later. For many summits, they give you the option to purchase a paid pass so that you can come back to the content later whenever you are past that crisis. And it may even be something that you missed the initial videos, but within a week you're able to do it. And it might be something that is helpful to give you something to focus on during the crisis that you're still in. I just say if you're going to do that, be sure and have your planner, mark a slot on your calendar so that you remember to go back to those sessions whenever you have a chance to go back to that summit or that conference and go through the material when you have a chance. All right, my friend, I hope these tips are helpful to you if you are writing in the midst of a short-term or long-term crisis and just in general during this holiday season. I know they have made a tremendous difference for me and living the writing lifestyle that I'm so blessed to live, and I hope they do the same for you. Along those lines of projects and keeping things on track, I did create the Confident Fiction Author Toolkit that you can go download for free over at fictioncourses.com/toolkit. In there, I have the softwares and the tools and methods that I use to keep my writing on track, whether I'm working from home or from a hospital room. So I hope that's helpful for you as well. Again, you can download it for free at fictioncourses.com/toolkit. I will see you next week on the Confident Fiction Author podcast. Take care.